Imagine, if you will, the end of a long journey. The road has climbed for hours, winding its way up the side of a mountain that seems to touch the dark belly of the sky. There are no other cars here, no signs of other people. The air itself has grown thin and quiet, the kind that feels ancient, as though it has been waiting here for centuries, just for you. In front of you stands a small round building made of dark stone, its domed roof the color of a faded copper coin. This is the observatory. There are no bright modern lights here, no harsh glow spilling across the mountainside. Just a single warm light seeping from a tall, arched window, a silent invitation into the quiet. The wooden door is heavy and old, and it opens not with a loud creak, but with a soft, groaning sigh, like something settling into a comfortable sleep. The air inside is warm and smells faintly of polished wood, of old paper, and something else, something crisp and clean, like the faint tang of ozone after a distant storm. It feels both lived in and otherworldly, like stepping into a place that belongs to time itself. And there, in the center of the circular room, is the celestial map maker. He is an old man with kind eyes that seem to hold the same deep, quiet darkness as the sky outside. He sits at a massive wooden desk, not looking at a computer screen or a gleaming machine, but at a vast sheet of parchment spread before him. The parchment is thick and creamy, its edges curled just slightly with age, as though it has been waiting a long while to be filled. A single lantern on his desk bathes the paper in a soft golden glow. He doesn't seem startled by your arrival. He simply looks up, a gentle smile playing across his face, and gestures to a simple wooden chair beside his desk. "Welcome," he says, his voice a soft, grandfatherly whisper that doesn't disturb the profound quiet of the room. "You are just in time. I am about to begin." Your eyes are drawn to the desk. The tools laid out before him are not the tools of modern astronomy. There is no laptop, no digital tablet, no sharp blue light of electronics. Instead, there is a quill pen, its feather a deep, raven black, resting beside a small uncapped pot of ink. But the ink within it does not reflect the lantern light. It absorbs it, holding a soft, internal glow of its own. It shimmers with a silvery blue luminescence, as though swallowed pieces of the night sky. You cannot help but wonder what it is. "It's starlight," the old man says, as though he has read your thoughts. "Collected, not created." He gestures with a frail hand toward the heart of the observatory. At first you hadn't noticed it because it blends into the shadows with its black painted frame, the telescope, but it is not the sleek kind you might expect. It is a magnificent Victorian-era refractor, made of brass and iron, housed beneath the dome. Its long body gleams faintly, and its base is connected to a series of copper pipes and delicate glass vials that, with a low, steady vibration, this subtle hum is the only constant sound in the room, the gentle breathing of the observatory itself. "The old astronomers used telescopes to look at the stars," he says softly, "to measure them. But looking is a temporary thing, a fleeting glance. I wanted to keep them. This telescope doesn't just magnify the light, it gathers it." He gestures toward one of the glass vials where silvery essence swirls slowly like liquid moonlight. "Each night I point it toward a star, and for hours it simply drinks in the light, photon by photon, until there is enough to make ink." He picks up the quill, its tip hovering over the parchment. "They call this celestial cartography," he murmurs, the words themselves sounding ancient. "The mapping of the heavens. But the old maps, they were always so full of warriors, of mythical beasts, of angry gods. They filled the sky with conflict. I think they missed the point." The quill touches the paper. You expect the sharp scratch of pen against parchment, but the sound is softer than that, more like the faint whisper of a leaf drifting across stone. He makes a single dot, no larger. You see, he says, his eyes lingering on the glowing mark, each star has its own story, not a myth, not a battle, just a story, a quiet one. His gaze drifts toward the immense window above, where the sky looms infinite and velvet dark. That one, he says, his voice dropping lower, almost a secret, is from a world so far away that the light you see tonight began its journey before there were mountains on this earth. And for all that time, it has been the home of silence. He invites you to imagine it, a planet not of stone, but of smooth, dark blue ice, polished endlessly by winds that make no sound. There are no oceans here, no storms, no crashing waves, just endless plains of frozen glass. Its mountains are jagged spires of frozen gas, sharp as crystal, unmoving, eternal. They have stood for eons, untouched. The only motion is the slow ballet of its two moons, one pale and bone-white, the other dark as charcoal, gliding across the sky in silence. There is no life here, no struggle, just a deep and perfect stillness. The star's story, he explains, is one of quiet. The quill dips again into the glowing ink, and another dot appears on the parchment, this one a little farther across the page. Its neighbor, he says, is a very different sort of place. This time it is not a planet, but the star itself. He describes it as a young star, one still learning its own rhythm. It doesn't shine with steady light. It pulses slow and hypnotic like a great heart. With each beat it sends out rings of dust, spreading through the void like ripples on a pond. And each ripple carries something with it. One ring is rich in iron, glowing red. The next, full of silicon, shimmers green. Then sulfur, a brilliant cosmic blue. These waves of color spread outward for millennia, expanding in concentric perfection. The story of this star, he says, is one of rhythm, a cosmic drumbeat. Now, with two glowing dots before him, he does something different. He does not draw the outline of a hero or the tail of a scorpion or any of the figures you may know from star maps. Instead, he touches the first dot, the silent ice world, and draws a curving arc to the pulsing star, a path, not a picture. A map should not be a picture, he says softly. It should be a path. These stories are not separate. They speak to one another across the dark. He explains how the ice world for eons has been bathed in the pulsing light of its neighbor. The blue fields of ice have absorbed those colors. Now there are frozen canyons shimmering red, plains glowing faintly green, cliffs shining soft blue. The silent world has taken the rhythm of its neighbor and woven it into its stillness, and in turn the pulsing star has had its path subtly altered by the gravity of the great ice planet. They're in dialogue, he explains, a conversation billions of years long, spoken only in light and gravity. You look at the parchment, two glowing dots, joined by a single shining line. It doesn't resemble any constellation you've ever seen. It is something else entirely, the beginning of a story written in a language of light. The celestial mapmaker lifts his quill and studies the arc of light he has just drawn. The story of the silent ice world and the pulsing star now rests on the parchment, glowing softly in the golden light of the lantern. He doesn't rush to add the next mark. Instead, he leans back, his kind eyes fixed on the curving line, as though listening to something invisible in the quiet air. And then you notice it too. The arc he drew doesn't feel complete. Its gentle curve carries with it a suggestion pointing toward another empty corner of the night sky. It is as if the line itself knows the way forward. The map, the old man murmurs, more to himself than to you. sometimes shows you where to go next. He looks at you with a quiet smile. Stories are never finished. One story makes an echo, and somewhere another story answers it. The quill hovers again, following the invisible pull of the first arc. His hand stops in a patch of empty parchment, and there he places another glowing dot. The world of echoes, he says softly, as though introducing an old friend. He invites you to imagine it, a planet of vast, endless desert covered in pale gray dust under a perpetual twilight sky. There are no oceans, no forests, no clouds, just silence and stillness until you notice the spires. Scattered across the land they rise, colossal crystalline towers, perfectly smooth, transparent as glass. Some are the height of a man, others stretch miles high into the thin, quiet air. They gleam faintly, even without a sun. This world has no voice of its own, the mapmaker explains. It is a listener. He tells you how light from distant stars travels across the void and touches the crystalline spires, and when it does, the crystals sing. A hot blue star might strike a tower and release a pure high note that shimmers like glass struck with a fingertip. An ancient red giant might hum against the spires, producing a deep sonorous tone that reverberates through the bones of the planet. Not sounds for the ear exactly, a world transformed into a symphony, tuned to the music of the cosmos. He leans closer to the parchment. And now imagine what happens when the pulsing star's light reaches this place. His quill dips again into the glowing ink, and he draws a line connecting the young rhythmic star to this new resonant world. You can almost feel the moment he described. The pulsing star sends a wave of red light, and the crystal towers answer with a bass note that thrums across the desert. A wave of green follows, and the spires hum in harmony, a cello-like resonance filling the twilight. Then blue light, and the planet sings with a clear, high tone that floats like chimes across the endless sky. It is no longer two stars in conversation, but three. The silent world that absorbed rhythm into color, the pulsing star that beats like a heart, and now the resonant world that translates their rhythm into song. On the parchment, the map has grown into a glowing triangle, and each line shimmering faintly like a sentence unfolding word by word. The old man leans back, his eyes warm. Stories are not alone, he says. They travel and they are received. They become something greater than themselves. His hand drifts over the parchment again, but this time it lingers on the paper itself. He strokes the edge with a tenderness one might reserve for a beloved old book. This paper, he says, lowering his voice as if sharing another secret, is as important as the ink. It must hold the light without fading. He explains that it is not ordinary parchment, but woven from moonflax, a rare plant that grows only on the highest slopes of this very mountain. During the day, its leaves curl tightly, hidden away. But in the light of the full moon, they open and glow faintly, drinking in silver light as if it were water. It takes a full year of moon cycles to gather enough fibers for even one sheet. The paper knows the language of quiet light, he says softly. That's why it can hold these stories. He lets the idea linger, and then his gaze drifts upward again. This time he does not look for a star or a glowing nebula, but for a patch of sky that seems perfectly empty, a space of pure, unbroken blackness. Not all stories are about things that shine, he murmurs. Some are about journeys. He tells you about the wanderers, rogue planets that have been cast adrift from their solar systems, left to glide alone through the darkness between stars. They have no suns, no orbits, no seasons. They are profoundly cold, frozen through. Yet the map maker insists they are not empty. They are collectors, he says gently, museums of the cosmos. He invites you to picture one, a world of ice and stone gliding in eternal night. Over millions of years it passes through the glowing heart of a nebula, and the rainbow-colored dust clings to its frozen surface, coating it in delicate layers. Later it drifts through the remnants of an exploded star, and the ashes of that ancient sun settle across its plains. Over eons it becomes a silent archive, carrying with it the memories of everything it has passed. Its surface is like a library of frost and dust, a record of the universe's slow unfolding. On the parchment, the old man draws a single wandering arc that meanders across the page. It does not connect neatly like the others. It drifts lonely and curved, a reminder of journeys that never return home. For a long while, he simply sits back, letting the glow of the parchment tell its own quiet story. The observatory hums faintly around you. The lantern flickers warmly, and outside the dome, the velvet dark sky holds its endless mysteries. For a long moment, the celestial mapmaker rests his hands on the desk, his eyes closed, as though listening to something far away. The room feels suspended in time. Even the tiny dust motes dancing in the lantern's glow seem to pause. Then he opens his eyes. They do not look at the sky this time, but at a quiet, empty space on the parchment, as though he can already see a story there, written in invisible ink. A story needs more than characters, he says softly, his voice carrying the calm weight of someone sharing a secret truth. It needs a nursery, a place where new stories can begin. His gaze turns upward again, but not toward a brilliant star. Instead, he points to a faint, milky haze smeared across the dark. The old maps called them nebulae, he explains, clouds of gas and dust, which is true, I suppose. But calling a nebula a cloud is like calling a forest just wood and leaves. It misses the point. He lifts his quill, but this time he doesn't dip its tip into the pot of glowing starlight ink. Instead, he turns the feather itself, brushing its side gently along the ink's rim until it holds a faint silvery blush. Then, with slow care, he sweeps the feather across the parchment in a swirling motion. At once, a soft, luminous cloud blooms on the page, expanding outward in whirls and tendrils of light. It has no sharp edges, only drifting layers of brightness and shadow, like a miniature fog of stars resting on paper. Imagine a garden, he whispers, but instead of soil, there is only a cool, endless haze, and instead of seeds, there are simply moments of patience. Inside this painted nebula, he describes, particles drift for centuries, passing each other like strangers in a crowded room. But slowly, gently, a few of them are drawn together. They cling, fragile at first, then more tightly as others join them. The cluster grows, it spins, not fast, not dramatic, just a steady turning, like frost patterns forming on a window pane. And then, he says, his quill poised like a needle over the glowing cloud, you get the sleepy stars. He dots the parchment within the nebula, tiny pinpricks of faint light that don't shine as brightly as the others. Their glow is hesitant, softer, as though they are still deciding whether to wake. Not every seed in a garden grows into a great tree, he explains. Some never quite gather the fire they need. These stars do not blaze like their brighter siblings. They simply warm. They are dusky, gentle things, glowing not with flame, but with quiet heat. the embers of a hearth, banked low for the night. He calls them the sleepy stars. They will spend their long lives, billions upon billions of years, glowing softly, radiating comfort into their cradle. They are the keepers of peace in the nursery, guardians of the slow, quiet rhythm of creation. And then with careful thought, he connects it back to the map already forming. He dips the quill again into ink and draws the faintest of lines, so delicate it seems more suggestion than mark. It runs from the glowing nebula to the dot of the resonant world, the one of crystal spires that sings the universe's music. That world hears everything, he says, eyes twinkling with gentle delight. The bright stars sing sharp, ringing notes. The giants hum with deep voices, but the sleepy stars, they sing differently. He invites you to imagine standing among the crystal spires of that listening world. Around you, the cosmic symphony thrums through the ground. You feel the pings and hums of countless stars vibrating in the air. But then beneath it all, a new note rises, not loud, not sharp. A low, steady hum so deep it feels more like a presence than a sound. It presses against your chest, warm and constant, like the heartbeat of the universe itself. That, he says, smiling, is the nursery's lullaby. On the parchment, the faint connection glows gently. The triangle of light and rhythm now has a tether to the soft cradle of creation. The geometry of the map is becoming richer, layered, not just points and lines, but stories feeding into one another, weaving a tapestry of silence, rhythm, song, and now rest. The observatory hums quietly around you. The lantern flickers golden light across the parchment, and for a moment you almost feel the lullaby yourself, like a vibration in the floorboards or a warmth in the quiet air of the room. The celestial mapmaker does not rush. He rests his quill again, hands folded loosely, as though even he is caught for a while in the peace of that deep, unseen song. The celestial mapmaker leans forward again, his hand hovering above the parchment, tracing the faint arc of the wanderer planet's lonely path. His fingertip follows the line as though sensing something hidden beneath it. At one point he pauses. The arc has a slight bend to it, a subtle curve, where you'd expect a straight path. A journey, he murmurs, is never a straight line. Even in emptiness there are currents, tides, things that pull you though you cannot see them. He turns his gaze to the sky, not searching for brilliance this time, but for darkness, a patch of night that seems emptier than the rest. His eyes soften. We map the things that shine, he says, but the oldest stories are not told in light. They are the whispers of what remains after the light has gone. For the first time, he rises from his chair, moving slowly with the ease of someone who has repeated this ritual countless times. He walks to a tall, narrow cabinet. Its dark wood glows faintly in the lantern light. He opens it with a quiet click, revealing rows of small clay pots, each sealed with wax, each marked with a simple painted symbol. He studies them for a moment before selecting one, a pale grey pot marked with a slow, meandering wave, and carrying it back to the desk, he sets it down beside the parchment. With a careful thumb, he breaks the wax seal. A faint mineral scent drifts out, cool and damp, like the air of a cave after rain. You cannot paint a shadow with light, he explains. To map the dark, you must use something born of it. He tips the pot and into a shallow dish pours a pinch of the finest dust you've ever seen. It is silvery grey, softer than flour, and it doesn't sparkle. Instead, it drinks the lantern's glow, like moonstone polished by time. This, he says gently, is ground silicate, from a meteorite that fell on this very mountain centuries ago. It never knew a sun. It was born between the stars it remembers. He does not take up the quill this time. Instead, he closes his eyes and sets his index finger to the parchment. Slowly, deliberately, he traces a winding path across the page. It meanders like a river, bending gently, circling, flowing. His finger does not hesitate, as if guided by memory, or perhaps by something older than memory. When he lifts his hand, the line is invisible. Only he seems to know it is there. Then he pinches some of the moon dust between his fingers, sprinkles it gently over the parchment, and leans close. With the softest puff of breath, he blows the excess away. The dust scatters, drifting off into the lantern's glow, but where his finger had moved, the powder clings, forming a faint shimmering trail. It is not a sharp line, but a ghostly current, like frost on glass, or a silver river glimpsed in twilight. There it is, he whispers with quiet awe, the great quiet stream. He invites you to imagine yourself drifting near it in the silence of space. To your eyes, the stars around you look unchanged, but you would feel it, a slow, irresistible pull, like an ocean current carrying you gently forward. No violence, no turbulence, just the steady momentum of countless unseen hands. The stars in this river are the first children of the universe, he explains. They burned bright and they burned quickly, and now they are cinders, embers, cooling into iron and carbon. They no longer shine, but their gravity remains, and together they flow. He gestures to where the shimmering path curves near the painted nebula on his map. A river does more than flow, it nourishes. As this ancient stream drifts past the nursery, it leaves behind fragments of its memory, the dust of the first stars, seeds for new ones. The oldest feeds the youngest. A cycle never broken. On the parchment, the nebula and the ghostly river seem to glow in quiet harmony. The sleepy stars hum their deep, steady note, and the great quiet stream drifts by, depositing its treasures, giving them the material they need to exist. You see it now. The slight bend in the wanderer's lonely path wasn't random at all. The current of the stream nudged it, carried it, as rivers guide stones without them ever knowing. The mapmaker sits back down, his hands folded. The lantern flickers, casting long shadows across the parchment, where glowing ink and silvery dust weave together. The map has grown into something more than a chart. Bright points of rhythm and silence, lonely wanderers, tender nurseries, and now the deep foundation of an ancient current flowing beneath them all. The universe, he says, his voice barely above a whisper, is quieter than we think. Its loudest stories burn quickly, but the quiet ones, they last. He lets the words settle into the silence. The observatory hums its soft clockwork rhythm, and outside, the mountain air is perfectly still, as though listening. The celestial mapmaker gazes at the glowing parchment, his hands folded in quiet reverence. The stories of silence, rhythm, echoes, journeys, nurseries, and rivers now rest side by side, their lines and clouds shimmering faintly in the lantern's glow. The map feels complete, yet his eyes drift not to the stars, but to something nearer, the lantern itself. It sits steady on the desk, its glass chimney warm, its flame calm and constant. Compared to the vastness of nebulae and ancient rivers, it is a small thing, and yet it has kept him company through the night. Of starlight. Every light tells a story, he says gently, even the small ones. From a drawer he takes a curious object, a silver spoon with a perfect, delicate loop instead of a bowl. It is not for scooping, but for capturing. The starlight ink is for the stories that are far away, he explains, but for the story that is right here, you need a different kind of light. He unlatches the lantern's chimney with care. The flame wavers in the sudden draught, and the scent of clean lamp oil drifts stronger into the room. He holds the silver loop above the tip of the flame, not to the essence of the firelight itself. When he lowers the loop into the pot of starlight ink, there is only a single drop left. The silvery blue liquid swirls as the lantern's golden warmth mingles with it, transforming it into a soft honey gold. Glows not with the distant sharpness of stars, but with the quiet warmth of a hearth fire. There, he whispers, the ink for the final story. He dips the quill into the golden drop, and instead of seeking a grand empty space on the parchment, he finds a small, quiet place near the center, a place no great lines cross, no glowing arcs converge. And there, with steady care, he makes a single tiny dot, the smallest mark on the map. That, he says softly, is us. Here, now, on this quiet mountain, in this quiet room, the place where all the other stories come to be heard. And in that moment, the entire map rearranges itself in your mind. You see that every line, every curve, every star and echo has, in its own way, always led here. He traces the paths with his weathered finger. The great quiet stream, he says, flowed for eons until it laid the stones of this mountain, the ground beneath our feet. His finger moves to the nebula. The sleepy stars send their lullaby, and it hums in the silence of this summit night. Then to the pulsing star, its rhythm beats with the steady clockwork of this observatory. And finally to the ice world. Its silence rests outside that window in the quiet of the mountain air. The map is no longer just distant stories. It is a homecoming. Every silence, every rhythm, every journey has left a piece of itself here. You are not looking at the universe. You are at its center, listening to its most peaceful story. The old man sets the quill down. He caps the ink pot with a soft click, extinguishing the starlight within. From a drawer, he takes a square of dark velvet and drapes it gently over the parchment. The glowing map vanishes, but not completely. Through the cloth, a faint diffuse light still seeps, soft as a dream remembered on waking. The story is not gone, it is simply resting. He turns to the great clockwork of the observatory and moves a polished brass lever. The low hum that has filled the room all night slows, deepens, and with a final sigh, falls silent. And in that silence you realize how much had been hidden beneath it. The stillness of the ice world, the hush of the wanderer, the quiet lull of the sleepy stars, a silence vast enough to hold all stories. The old man looks at you, his kind eyes reflecting the lantern flame. The map is finished for tonight, he says softly. It has told its stories, and now it must sleep, and so must we. He lowers the lantern's wick, the flame shrinks, its light folding inward until it is only a trembling ember. With a gentle breath, he blows it out. Darkness fills the room, not sharp or cold, but deep and warm. It holds the memory of stars and rivers, of echoes and lullabies. It feels safe, like a blanket laid across the world. The only glow comes from beneath the velvet cloth. A faint, tender reminder that the stories are still there, waiting for tomorrow. And in that perfect, peaceful silence, there is nothing left to do but rest. You let go. The stories drift away, and you drift with them into your own quiet, endless sleep.